Hi y'all, welcome back to another Four Ways Collaboration video. This month's project, a simple carving mallet, was suggested by Sam Angelo. Carving mallet is it's a great project because it's a great beginner project to help you practice your spindle skills. Every wood shop needs a bunker for various tasks, even if you're not a wood turner. In this video, we're going to talk about the difference between a carving mallet and say a jointer's mallet. We're going to talk about weights, appropriate woods, and most importantly, we're going to show you step by step how you can turn your own. If there's something here, so then keep watching.
Good. And it keeps pulling back with small taps.
So what do you need a mallet for? Well, a lot of times you might want to drive in a spur drive, for example, into a bowl blanket. I saw somebody try to use a hammer one time, and I got over there and kind of scolded him a little bit. But you don't use a hammer on a drive because you'll mushroom the end of it, and if you mushroom it too much, you'll malform it, so it won't even fit in your Morse taper. So hammers are for other things. You may have a rubber mallet in your shop. That's okay for some things that require something a very soft hitting surface. But wood is generally pretty forgiving hitting on things, so it's great for any number of things. Maybe you're knocking the nib off of the bottom of a bowl. So, you know, just a great tool to have around. The traditional carver's mallet is typically made out of a single piece of wood, but you can glue up whatever wood you have, and I know there are folks that sometimes will make the top out of a heavier, denser wood, maybe an exotic like lignum vitae, and then use something less expensive for the handle and join those two pieces. Any type of dried hardwood will work well. This one is dogwood, Bradford pear, red oak out of my yard. It was green, and this is Bradford pear. This one is crab apple. Dried wood is best, but you know, green's okay. It might change shape a little bit, it might crack, but you know, it's a bunker depending on how you're going to use it. It might not make a lot of difference. This was just absolutely green, and it's got a few cracks on the end, but you know, not a problem. It helps if you use straight grain wood rather than figured wood because it's less likely to split on you, and it'll have a nice even strength. One problem with using green wood is when you go to use it, if it hasn't dried out, it's subject to more damage from hitting heavy metal, especially metal objects. But you know, maybe that's not a big concern. You can always turn another one. I would say the wood you use is probably not real critical, especially for your first mallet, because you're always going to turn another one. So whether you got something like this hard maple or this piece of deep arced red oak that it still has the pith coming through it, and it's got a few cracks in it, but it'll still make a mallet. This piece of Bradford pear got a pith going through it, but it didn't crack at all. This thing has been seasoning for, oh, I don't know, maybe 3 years, so this will make a great mallet. So in terms of design, you can see all of my mallets have a certain similarity. The head diameter varies typically from about 2.5 to 3.5 inches. The overall height is somewhere in the area of maybe 9 to 12 inches. Mine tend to be about 10 inches long. You want to make the handle grip appropriate for your handle. You generally want to have a knob on the end of it to make it a little easier to grip. If you're striking, less likely to slip out of your hand. One thing you don't want to do is put any type of bead or ornament down here that will weaken the joint. My first ornament, Bradford pear, broke right here at the joint, so this dogwood's held up, but it's not a good design to put a bead here. All right, today the blank I'm using is a piece of hard maple. This is much harder than we have down here in the south. It was already round. I bought it as this cylinder. It's 10 inches long, 2.5 inches diameter, or 62 millimeter by 250. The starting weight is 21 ounces or 610 grams, and we're going to make, I don't know, maybe a third of that go away. So I'm going to mark off 4.5 inches. I'm going to have the head instead of 4 1/4, I'm going to go for 4.5 to give it a little extra weight. And we're going to have a very slight taper of maybe, 1/4 of an inch between here and here. don't know if you can see this line. Let me just mark it with a parting tool a little bit. It's a little out of round. Let me true it up. So I'm going to do most of the shaping with the spindle roughing gouge. This is designed to turn square stock into round stock, or to, but for spindle work. So we're just going to true it up. I'm only going about 1,000. Let me crank it up a little bit. And this is a bit out of round. Let me see if I can get a better center this a little bit better, because I don't want to lose any of this wood. This is close. I don't worry about this end is center now, because it's going to all be turned down quite a bit. Okay, that's running much more true. Much better. Okay. Get the speed up a little bit. Start taking it down. Speed up just a little bit. I'm going to just come back to that. Now I'm going to make a knob on this end, and it's going to be just a little bit wider than the widest part of the handle, and you know how big it is, just a function of your taste, but something like that. So it gives me an idea about where it's going to be. So I'm going to just start cutting back here from that line. And we'll come back to that. Now the thickest part of the the handle, I want to be somewhere around 1 1/4 to 1 3/8. This mallet's going to be a workhorse, not a show pony, so I'm going to wind up leaving that live center mark in there because it doesn't cause any problems and I don't care. So I'm going to round off the end of that bead. Using a 3/8 inch spindle gouge. Round it over. Now I'm going to round over this side where the bottom of my hand is going to be touching maybe. If the middle is going to be 1 3/8, this is just going to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to define where this is. Now, and for this mallet, this is going to be an actual carving mallet. I'm going to use this for carving tools. So I'm going to be choking up on the handle. So I'm going to have the widest part, not in the center, but up here, as opposed to most mallets where I tend to put it in the middle. But I'm going to move this to the up a little bit. And now let's get a feel for the diameter. That's 1 3/8. Going to bring it down a little bit more. I'll just use the spindle roughing gouge again. See if I can get this to 1 3/8. looks like I'm there. So I'm just going to take it down a little bit more as I go further down. And I'm going to leave this long slope here because I'm going to be using this probably with the handle choked up a little bit. Actually, I wished I'd made this fatter area a little bit closer here, but that'll be all right. Now all I got to do is kind of slope this down just a tiny little bit. Maybe this diameter is about 3/8 of an inch more than this, or about 10 millimeters. So I'm not going to measure it. I'm just going to take a slope, even slope from here down to here. And I like the looks of that. Now I want to round over the end here because if you're using this a lot, you're going to have a tendency to chip out this end if it's not rounded over, or just a little chamfer. Maybe a 45-degree chamfer is really all it's going to take. Something about like that. And that's, I think, pretty much got it. Let me get a feel for it. Yep. So I'm going to use this thing probably choked up like this. Okay, that's good. I've got a nice slope on here. I can see how even it is by putting a straight edge on it. So I'll put a straight edge on it, and that looks good. I really don't see any gaps here, so I'm fine with this. This is probably, I'm not going to worry about sanding this because it's going to be a carving mallet and it's smooth. It's got almost 120 grit texture on it from that spindle roughing gouge. The handle's got a few tiny little tool marks, so I'm going to use a little 180 grit to get rid of some of those tool marks, make it a little more comfortable in my hand. And I think that'll take care of that. Now in terms of finish, you can leave it no finish. You can put a boiled linseed oil finish on it, which is probably what I'll do. So I'm just going to rub a little boiled linseed oil on it. A little bit more. Looks like it's soaking it up. Get some on the end. And friction it in a little bit. Be careful not to wrap the rag around my fingers. And with boiled linseed oil, you got to be careful with disposing of the rags because they can spontaneously combust if you leave them in a pile. Take them outside, lay them out on the concrete. And we're going to take a little piece of beeswax and just put a little of that on there. Let's talk about weight. Lightweight mallets like this, maybe this, tend to be in the 8 to 10 ounce or 250 to 300 grams. And they're good for delicate carving. Medium weight, 12 to 16 ounces, tend to be in the 350 to 450 grams. An all-purpose carving mallet. And then a heavy mallet, heavier than any of these that I have, would be 20 to 24 ounces or 550 to 700 grams for roughing or working really dense hardwood. You can also drill holes and add weight to it. You can even drill a wide wide hole and fill it with shot for a dead blow mallet such as this one. From a design perspective, to me one of the most important things is the head needs to be flat so you can set the mallet like that. So if it, in this case, this one were all cut on a machine and they were all flat and trued up. But if not, you could part down and take that nib off with a saw. You can always go over to your belt sander and sand it flat a little bit. But that's real important that it be able to sit flat on your tool bench. Now, let me contrast these typical carving mallets. One of the advantages of the carving mallet is you can strike from any direction and it will work. You don't have to be real concerned about alignment. A jointer's mallet tends to be heavier. It's got a flat face, so you've got a design to hit it on that flat face, so it's a little more limiting. And like I say, they tend to be heavier because you're using it for heavy blows on assembling joints, for example. I made this when I first started woodworking. It's got very limited use since then. So I'm pleased with how this turned out. It weighs about 13 ounces, about the same as this dogwood carving mallet I had. And I think I'll get a lot of use out of it because it feels comfortable when you choke it up. And a lot of times when you're actually using it for tapping on carving tools, you have a tendency to choke up and tap very lightly. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up to help communicate to the YouTube algorithm that they need to push this out to other woodturners. And take advantage of watching my collaboration partners, Richard Raffin, Tomislav Tomašić, and Sam Angelo. I'll have the links to their projects, so check out and see how they did it. And get out in your shop, make you a mallet. Y'all stay safe. Come on back, you hear?